Good evening everyone, and welcome to Game 7 of the 2013 US vs UK Internet Scrabble Tournament. It's a best of 9 series, currently tied 3 games apiece. Tonight, Jeff Thevenot of the US is playing Helen Gibson of the UK, both of whom have competed at World Championship level. The match is about to start, so let's join the action. And it's Helen to go first. She doesn't have a bingo. I don't think un alone is good. And she has no high-scoring tiles. Nounal is being suggested. That's pretty good. It's difficult to know whether to play a short word or a long word here, but I think a long word like Nounal is going to be better, because there are no fabulous rack leaves with this rack. The L and the N do not go well together. Certainly getting rid of the U is a priority. Yeah, Nounal looks best. Now Jeff, does he have a bingo? Well, Glunches is being immediately suggested through the U of Nounal. That would be a fabulous spot. Yep, Jeff gets that. Great start for him. Helen now does have a good rack, but does she have a bingo? I'm wondering about embailed. Brett is suggesting that, which I think means it is good. And that would play in row L, beginning with the E of Glunches. And if Helen spots this is going to be a wide open game. Some games start with short words and overlapping plays and the board stays fairly blocked. If embailed goes down, and it does, we should be in for an exciting high-scoring game. Now Jeff looks close to a bingo. He's got bingo-y tiles, but the A and the R are duplicated and he's got 4 vowels, so he may just miss. Certainly no suggestions have come from the Railbirds as yet. I have Zizivar open in front of me. And I can see there are no 7s. And there is 1 8 through a T, and that's Aero Dart. So Jeff is not bingoing, and he has no high-scoring tiles, and these are some of the hardest racks to deal with, because you don't want to upset your rack too much because it's bingo-y, but it's irksome to get a really low score, especially as there's a risk of having a similar rack next time. Now a door is being suggested at M9. That's pretty good because it takes out 08, the triple word square. And I think a board is pretty good as well. Anything over 20 was looking good with that rack. Now Helen's got the Q. She does not have the U, but she has the I. So Chi is playable. That's playable at G3 across. There may be other spots. Chin is the other short word using a Q and an I. Chi does play in other spots. It plays at E7 down, and Cheese plays at M4 across. I think Chi at G3 across is looking best. Now, Jeff, I think, is almost certain to have a bingo here. Horia is good. That plays at I8 across. But I suspect there are many bingos. So Jeff will be looking to find the best one. The difference between playing a second best bingo and a best bingo can be 20 or 30 points, so it is important to try and do the best you can. It's very easy to spot a bingo, feel grateful and slap it down, but you could be missing out on points by playing too hastily and overlooking the best bingo. Heroical is being suggested. Oh wow, that's great. That's in column 11 and that's a double-double. It's not an easy word to see. It's a common word, but it's just, well, in my experience, it's a difficult word to see. possibly because the ical ending is slightly unusual. You tend to think of words ending IC rather than ending ICAL. Anyway, we shall see if it is spotted. Certainly no alternative bingos have been suggested as yet. The D at 08 must look fairly promising to Jeff. So he may well be looking for words which begin or end with that D. But any such word would be inferior to heroical because it would just be tripled rather than quadrupled. I'm just going to check on Quackle. Sorry, Zizivar. It's Zizivar I've got open. Yeah, nothing through the D, which is slightly surprising, even with D in the middle. Well, Jeff will feel very relieved if he spots heroical and irked if he misses it, but it's not an easy word to spot. I'm just looking for other words through the L. And there are 6. There's Halicor, which doesn't play, which is the anagram of heroical. There's for hail, which does play but is only doubled. There's air holes, likewise. And the same with Sholia and aerolith. So there's a whole bunch of bingos through the L. I would expect Jeff to spot at least one of them, but will he spot the best one, heroical? He does! Excellent! Well done, Jeff. And that gives Jeff a lead of 69 points. And Helena's got a great rack. She should be able to immediately bingo back. She's got suited and outsider in column 13. Io Duretz doesn't play. And there's one other anagram in that set. Outrides. Yep, suited onto the onto the D of a board for 80. Gives Helen an 11-point lead, but now Jeff has a fabulous rack of his own. Does he have a bingo? Surely he does. This looks so close. Satire is one of the best 6-letter combinations in Scrabble. The U isn't great with it through an H. It makes the thesauri, but the H of heroical is not in the right place for that. I'm wondering about the D of embaled, if Jeff has a bingo through that. Nothing has been suggested as yet by the railbirds. Well, maybe this is one of those racks which looks better than it is. Yeah, there's nothing through a D. And thesauri is the only one through the H. Eurolites doesn't play through the L of nounal. And Jeff plays UH. Now I wonder if there was a bingo. I don't think there was. There's nothing through the S of suited or the R of a board. So I think a bingo would have been identified had one existed. So we're back with Helen. She has a 1-point lead. She doesn't have a bingo, but she does have the F and the C for score, and it's a fairly balanced rack. So she should be able to score well. For example, fence at B10 down. Yeah, that would score quite nicely. Rack leave of IE isn't great. But what else is available? Jeff's play of UH is pretty good. It didn't score very much, but his rack leave is satire, so he's almost certain to be bingoing next go. He did well to play UH as quickly as he did. I think had that been my rack, I would have agonised over it for a bit longer, fearful of having missed a high probability bingo. Now F at E10 is being suggested. Okay, well, it's in column 10 where I was thinking about fence, but F is more defensive, and it probably scores a similar amount, and the rack leave of CEEIN is certainly more bingo-y than EI, so I would concur with the suggestion of F. 31 points, that's pretty good. The S of suited is quite dangerous from Helen's perspective and attractive from Jeff's perspective, given that we know he has satire on his rack. Nothing else apart from F is being suggested. Well, re-fence is being suggested. Now where's that going to go down? Oh, I see. At N8 from the R of a board. 36 points. Well, yeah, that's similar to F and fence, but it does provide an additional floater. Jeff goes straight down with Iris 8. No surprise that he had a bingo given his rack leave. He now has a 43-point lead, but Helen's on turn and she's got the Z and a good balance of vowels and consonants. Cozy is good, either with or without an E. I would think that Helen would like to play off the Y with the Z if she can. Oh yes is another word available on her rack. Not sure if any of those actually play. Zydeco doesn't play. Well, Zydeco does play. It plays in column 13 through the D of embailed. But the only problem with that is that Helen would be placing the O right next to the double letter square in row O, inviting a hefty response from Jeff, so I think she's likely to shy away from that. Res is playable in row N for 32 points, but it retains the C and the Y, so that's not great. I'm looking to see if there's anything from the O of heroical, but I can't see a play. With a K, Helen would have Ozekai for a huge score. So this is not an easy rack to deal with. Zydeco is too open, but it does burn the Y. And Res retains the C and the Y, which is not good, especially when you're 40 points behind. Zydeco's 42 points, which is good. Maybe Helen should just play that and take the risk that Jeff scores well in row O. I think given that Helen is 40 points behind, Zydeco is probably best. She doesn't want to spend several moves sorting out her rack. Zydeco really sorts it out in one. The rack leave is poor, just 2 vowels, but it's a rack leave with the potential to become a bingo, whereas the rack leave of CEIOY has very little potential to form a bingo next go. Now Helen does not have to play the Z. The Z is a good scoring tile to keep, so she may well be considering non-Z plays as well. AYE is being suggested. Not quite sure where. L9 down. Oh, I see. From the A of embailed. Only 21 points. I think Zydeco has got to be better than that. Well, Helen has spent a long time on this move, but because so many bingos have been played, she's not in time trouble. She's still got more than half her starting time, and there are only 34 tiles in the bag. Oh, now I missed something with the AYE play. What the AYE play does achieve is that it sets up ZO at N10 down for 60 points plus, which is pretty good. So I'm persuaded. I think I is a good play. Setups are really nice in Scrabble. They're difficult to spot unless you've got your mind works that way. But when they do come off, they're excellent. Okay. Well, Helen didn't play I. Res was one of the candidate moves being suggested. And Jeff, for the first time in this game, has got a tricky rack. But he's got an 11-point lead. He could play O-bang at H11 across. 33 points, that would certainly sort the rack out. He's going to want to play off 2 or 3 out of the B, the G and the G, as well as splitting up the duplicate A. Bandog is being suggested at I13 down by Brett Smitheram. That's another good play. 26 points, and it has the advantage of obstructing the triple word squares at O15 and at H15, which is quite a feat. Jeff has the O and the A for playing underneath the Z of Res, but he doesn't have a six tile play to reach the triple word square. And that's interesting. TWQ, I think his Toe Wybin, has observed that AYE was the best move for Helen, with Zydeco's second best. And his, I believe his observations are based on computer simulations, so there's a degree of reliability about his posts, or his comments rather. Now we're back with Helen, who is 44 points behind, but she has a balanced rack and she's got the X. So there could well be a big play available here. I can see immediately that she could play Ox at M8 across for 35 points. That's pretty good. But is there something better? And Ox, well, that keeps the Y. It would be good to play off the Y as well. A play of Oxy somewhere would leave CEIS, which is a great rack leave, particularly with the N of Nief available as a floater, and indeed the N of Obang. Oxy could play at M13 across. 32 points, that's not bad. Could also play at O10 across underneath Res. 28 points, and that would prevent Jeff from reaching the triple word square at O15 from O10. Now, is there somewhere better to play Oxy? Well, it could be played at C9 down, but then you're taking out the N of Nief as a floater. But maybe that would be regarded as acceptable given that the N of Obang is available. It's been pointed out that Onyx is also playable, hence also Onyxes through the N of Nief, which would reach the double word square. But I think Onyxes is only in the 30s, so not worth burning the S for. Well, Helen scores 40 points for XO, which is not a move we considered, but the score is pretty good, and there's now only 4 points between them. But Jeff has a pretty good rack. To an L he would have gold tail. Does he have a playable bingo? I'm just going to put this into Zizivar. And note Toe Wybin's comments. He's saying that Obang was the best. So it's useful to have some simulation going on from one of the railbirds. Oh, Brett has immediately spotted Pick Knights, and more importantly, Helen has spotted it as well. That's a great play. Really nice word. Not easy to see. Look at the opening 3 letters, P-Y-C. You don't tend to think of these, the high-scoring tiles, all appearing together. But they do in Pick Knights. Now Helen has got a 47-point lead, so the balance of the game has turned. Jeff is behind, and Jeff has the problem rack. He's got the J for score, but he's only got one vowel to go with it, and these high-scoring tiles, the J, Q, X and Z, all benefit from having vowels to go with them. But it's an open board, so there may well be good places for Jeff to play the J. Janty is being suggested at F14. Oh, that's pretty good, placing the J on the triple letter square and the Y on the triple letter square as well, plus splitting up the duplicate T. So I'd be surprised if there's a better play than that. Now Wybin's commenting that when Helen played EXO, Onyx simulated best, followed by Coxie. Okay. Yep, Onyx through the N of Obang. Not quite sure where Coxie was playing. But back to Jeff. He's got over 10 minutes. There's only 13 tiles in the bag, so he's not in time trouble, but he is in points trouble. 47 points behind. He could win without a bingo, but it's unlikely. Yeah, I think Janty for 39 was the best. He's now 8 points behind, but it's Helen on turn, and she's got a fairly balanced rack. Getting towards the end game, the W and the V are useful tiles. Vrow is a playable word. Sorry, a good word in Scrabble. I'm not sure if it's playable. Well, if the wire pick knights was one square higher, Helen would have Wyvern. Raya is being suggested by Sidewinder at A8 down. That's pretty good. It takes out the triple word square at A8, doesn't provide useful floaters, takes out bingo lanes in rows B and D, plays off one of the high scoring tiles and retains another high scoring tile for score next go. Now it has been pointed out that Rye may be a better play, 9 points fewer, but the rack leave is better. Well, there's some debate going on as to whether the 9 points compensates for the poorer rack leave. Not sure where I stand on that. Well, Helen's 8 points ahead. I think I would play Raya because there are 3 E's and a blank unseen. And also Rye does not take out the bingo lane in row D. Okay, well let's see if... Ah, wow, up wafted, does that play? Ah, it's almost up wafted. Yeah, with a floating U there would be up wafted, there isn't. Now this is not a great rack and Jeff is 35 points behind. Does he have a big play? Only 7 tiles in the bag. His bingo prospects are really low. He must be hoping, I think, for a good score this go. Helen doesn't have a good score and he has another good score. But I think with a board this open and seeing the remaining tiles, I don't think Helen's likely to have a poor rack. Okay, few for 27 points, 8 points behind for Jeff, 8 points ahead for Helen. She's got 2 V's, but she's got a balanced rack in terms of vowels and consonants, so this ought to be resolvable. But does she have any high-scoring plays? And suddenly the remaining tiles look pretty bingo-y, and row D is a bingo lane for bingos ending in E. So Helen is not home and dry. Yeah, slightly unfortunate for Helen, duplicating the V and the O. She's got the over prefix, which is good. But the remaining tiles don't give her a bingo. And there aren't any great spots on the board for a V, and she doesn't have any other high-scoring tiles. So, what to do? Vigo is good at f4 across, but it doesn't score very much. 4 tiles left, so Helen would be looking to play off 3 tiles, ideally. Only 14 points for Vigo. That would give her a 22-point lead. Not a comfortable lead. Helen's got just over 5 minutes to do the best she can with this rack. It's a really tricky position she's in. And she's unfortunate. Looking at the tiles that are left, it wouldn't have been difficult to have a rack where you could play in row D with a high-scoring tile, taking out a bingo lane and doubling to have a score in the mid to late 20s. Having said that, any such play would play off 4 tiles and empty the bag. So, tricky situation. I'm looking to the railbirds to see what's being suggested, and nothing is being suggested, which I think indicates how problematic this rack is. Wybin has pointed out that Raya was a better play than Rai. Well, certainly it would have played off 2 more tiles, which would have increased the chances of drawing the blank. Arvo, only 14 points, and but it does play 3 tiles, so it keeps 1. And I think Helen may be fortunate. Jeff does not have the blank, and nor does he have a bingo. He's 22 points behind, so he'll certainly need to score well with this rack. He's got the scoring tiles in the M and the P, but are there any good scores available? Can't play in the top right of the board to good effect because FE doesn't take anything in front of it. But a play of Ma in that spot. 32 points. That would give a 10-point lead. That would be close. But is there anything better? Pa or Ma is being suggested. That would retain the duplicate T. That would leave him with 6 tiles. But if he wants to go out in 2, he probably ought to play off more than 2 tiles right now. I think playing out in 2 is going to be necessary to win. So can he score 30 points and play off more than 2 tiles somewhere? Tamp is being suggested, but I can't see where. Oh, well, that's an interesting observation from Magic Hour. Phil Robertshaw, he's suggesting Patind in column 4 through the N of Nownel. 20 points, so not as big a score as Ma and Pa, but the rack leave of MT is far more conducive to playing out next go, and there are 4 vowels unseen plus the blank. So Patind looks quite good. I'm wondering where Tamp is being suggested and what the score is. Oh, well, quite possibly at M12 across. 24 points, leaving DET. Yeah, Well, it's a similar idea to Patind. Prioritising the rack leave, or leaving yourself with a rack leave with a good chance of going out next go. Now, Jeff has got 6 minutes left. Just as with Helen last go, he's got a really, really tough rack, which is good for us as observers, but pretty painful if you're one of the players, because you know at this stage that the move you choose could win or lose the game, and sometimes with this sort of rack, this sort of score, there's only one winning move, and it can be really tricky to spot. Damp is also being suggested at M12. Whoops. Okay. So engrossed in the game I hadn't moved my mouse for a while. But nothing has happened. So Patind is being discussed, but the suggestion is that there's a risk of KI at N14. That's above the eye of Algoid, and and that's one reason why Damp or Tamp would be good, because it would take out that K spot. Well, the observation that is that it's almost impossible to win from here for Jeff. Well, possibly. It all depends what the final tile in the bag is. Well, John O'Loughlin is saying that playing Patind and picking up a vowel should enable a win even if KI is played. 27 points for KI. 464. It's 49 points Jeff would need to make up, less count back. Yeah, it's possible, because 20 of those points come from Patind, so you're looking at a 25-point play maybe. So I think this is going to be close. Temp. Jeff's remaining rack is Date. He is 2 points ahead. I don't think Helen can go out. She's got a K, a U and a V. And she's 2 points behind. What she will be doing perhaps is seeing what Jeff can do with Date, so that she knows what she has to do. But with 3.5 minutes left, she may simply be really focusing on her own rack, because it is a tricky rack. Suggestions being made that Invoke is playable in row D. Will that be enough? I think 28 points. That would give a 26-point lead. Well, may not be enough. It's going to be very close. Knave at D3 is being suggested. I think that's similar to Invoke. Well, I think this is going to be a really close ending. I don't know what the best play for Jeff is, but he's got all this thinking time while Helen's clock is ticking, but he's also got 3 minutes of his own. So he'll be looking at the board as it stands with Date. And then as soon as Helen plays, he'll be looking to see if she has created any opportunities for a higher scoring play. Certainly the feeling amongst the Railbirds is that Invoke is enough to win. certainly haven't seen any fabulous spots for date or the letters in date. They don't play at D12 across, which would be a nice high-scoring spot on the board. Invoke is nice because the V takes nothing before or after it, so Jeff's abilities to play parallel to Invoke are restricted. Yeah. If Helen plays Invoke, Jeff needs to score 24 points with date, and I think he's a little unfortunate that he can't, given how open this board is and how good his rack is in some ways. But nothing is being suggested. Okay, evoking for 26. Does that win? It's 2 points fewer than Invoke, so Jeff needs 22 to win. Or 22 to draw, I think. Okay, well, there's some dispute as to exactly what Helen needs. Exactly what Jeff needs. He's 24 points behind. He'll get 4 on countback, so he needs 20 to draw. Can he do it? Well, agonisingly for Jeff, I think the answer is no. You'd certainly think with this board and this rack that 20 points were available somewhere. It doesn't look like they are. Certainly no suggestions of winning plays have been made. There are lines available which would score 20 points, but there just aren't words available with Jeff's rack. I'm looking at column 2, parallel to irisates, down onto the R of Arvo, with the D at J2, but nothing fits that spot. But this has been a high-scoring game. Both players will have scored over 450, and the spread is likely to be fewer than 10 points. Teed is being suggested at C1, a nice word, T-E-A-E-D, only 12 points. So Jeff would lose by 8. Agonisingly close. CWKS99 whispers that this has been another good game. I agree. I think this has been an excellent game to watch. Some great words and high scoring. I think Jeff needs to be commended for spotting glunches and heroical, and certainly Helen's spot of pick knights was excellent. Now Jeff has got less than a minute to go, so we are about to see what he has found. I'm sure he will have tried harder than anybody to eke out as many points as he can with this rack. But I think a winning play is going to elude him. There it goes, teed for 12. I didn't see any suggestions for a better outplay. That is the end of the game. Final score 455 to Jeff, 463 to Helen, a winning margin of just 8 points, and it gives the UK a 4-3 lead in the best of 9 series. The UK now needs just one more game to win. There are 2 more games to be played. They are going to be played out later on this week, tomorrow night and Thursday night. But back to this game, let's see what they missed. So, it was Helen to go first. Nownel looks best. Good spot. Glunches was the only bingo. And Semi-Bald was playable, as was Mandible and Gimbaled. Okay, Embaled was spotted, but I hadn't noticed the other three, but Embaled scored the most and was best. No bingos here. And Aboard for 24. Yeah, I think Adore for 30 is probably better. Chi for 23, that looks best. Heroical certainly best. Look at that, a clear 20 points better than the next highest scoring bingo. So well done on finding that, Jeff. Suited 01, yep, that was best. Very unlucky not to have a bingo with this rack, Satire +1. Now Jeff played UH for 10 points, and I think that's got to be best because the rack leave of Satire is just almost unimaginably good. Refence for 40. Okay, quite an open play. Nief for 33 is probably as good or slightly better. Jeff was rewarded for his play of UH with Iris 8, which was the best of the available bingos. Zydeco for 42. This is where it was observed that I simulates best because of the res setup. But res was straight out was still pretty good. Obang was Jeff's play. That looks fine. And Coxie at B9. Ah, right. Parallel to Nief coming down. That's nice. 38 points and a great rack leave. Instead, Exo was played for 40, which is, well, it's a good score. It's only 2 more points than Coxie, but the rack leave is significantly inferior. So Coxie and Onyx were certainly better than Exo. Close to a bingo here, close to Goldtail. But Algoid was a really good spot. It's not a common word. I don't think it takes an S. So it's tough to be sure of a word like Algoid when you're playing in front of an audience. Now this was Helen's moment of fabulousness with Pick Knights for 92 points. And Jeff was, who had been in front, was now in trouble. He was playing catch-up and he had a poor rack. He played Janty for 39, which brought him right back into it. And Helen had the V and the W, and these tiles stayed with her. One or both of them stayed with her. Raya, well, looks like it was best, but Helen played Rye, which was nearly as good, but not as good. Now, Deft at 30 for 36, playable parallel to Iris 8, would have been good. And Jeff played Few for 27 points. Yeah, I think Deft probably better. Now this was a horrible rack. This is where Helen played Arvo. M12 Rove is being suggested, but this would have emptied the bag, so I think we need to discount some of the suggestions on the right. And, well, Arvo isn't there. It's very difficult to tell at this stage. Well, just off the cuff, it's difficult to comment on just how good or not Arvo was, but Arvo was played. Now this was a really tricky rack. The suggestions of Mar and Pa look good for 32 points, but the rack lead means that Jeff is not going out the following go, and he does need to do that. So I think Jeff's play of Temp or Tamp is certainly superior to Mar or Pa. This was, well, fairly tricky rack for Helen. It wasn't clear, I think, what the best move was. Invoke in row D looks pretty good, and Evoking in column 4, it was also winning enough. So finally, was Teed best? Yup, it was, and the only other outplay was Tord at A6. So, a fantastic game, only 8 points of spread in it, high scoring match, and high quality of play. A lot of really good spots, particularly bingo spots, so well done to both players. Thoroughly enjoyable game. UK has a 4-3 lead. Join me again for the remaining games in this series.